And we are recording.
Gonna do a countdown?
Whatever you want to do, Linda.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome to Rotary in New York State. My name is Linda Cole, and I'm the district governor for District 7120, which covers the Finger Lakes region. What structure should Rotary adopt to keep it vibrant and sustainable for the next 100 years? Let's explore some options together as we share a very special presentation with you tonight.
Good evening. My name is Cheryl Matt, and I'm the District Governor of District 7150, which encompasses Central New York and Mohawk Valley. We're honored to have former RI President Barry Rassin with us this evening to speak about reshaping the future of Rotary for the next century. He will be joined by incoming RI Director Drew Kessler, who's from the Hudson Valley, New York area.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rich Grishey, and I'm the district governor of District 7190, which is in the Capital District of New York. Rotary is evolving, and Rotarians in upstate New York want to be at the forefront of this evolution. We want to grow Rotary, and we're open to new ideas about the structure of Rotary International and how it will affect all of us in the future.
Hi, everyone. My name is Matt Adler, and I'm the District Governor of District 7170 in the Southern Tip of New York. Transformation, change, new ideas, all of this can make us uncomfortable when we don't have enough information, but it can be exciting when we get involved and embrace it. What changes should we make to Rotary, and what traditions should be retained? Tonight, we have the honor and the pleasure of hearing from two Rotarians who have embraced change. I will begin by introducing Drew Kessler, RI Director for our zones, RI Director-elect for our zones 28 and 32. We are part of Zone 32, and these two zones are a community of Rotarians in Bermuda, Canada, and the Great Lakes, and much of northeastern United States. Drew Kessler is a Vice President and Relationship Manager of the Commercial Real Estate Division of M&T Bank. He currently is responsible for portfolio and loan and deposit relationships with major businesses within the metropolitan New York area, while increasing the bank's business in established and developing markets. His leadership position in the industry dates back to 2003. Drew has built his career as one of the leading bankers in New York. Drew prides himself on his commitment to client service and his comprehensive knowledge of real estate and financial industry, as well as his dedication to community service. A Rotarian since 2001, at the age of 20, Drew has served the North Rockland Rotary Club in all levels of leadership, and at the time became the youngest president in their club's 91-year history at the age of 25. Drew is a past district governor of Rotary District 7210, which is made up of 1,600 members and 50 clubs serving the 9 counties in the Hudson Valley of New York. Most recently, Drew has served as a district governor, and he also served as his district's Rotary Foundation chair. He has also been one of 8 members internationally to serve on the Young Past District Governors Committee that served the Rotary International president. Currently serving as the Zone 2832's general chair for the up-and-coming 2021 symposium in Detroit, Michigan. On December 1st, 2020, Drew was nominated to join the 2022-24 Rotary International Board of Directors. And Drew truly lives the motto of Rotary service above self. And also, Drew can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he will be the youngest RI director in Rotary's history. Drew resides in Hopewell Junction, New York, with his wife, Vicki, and his 5 children, Dylan, age 19, Joe, age 18, Parker, age 16, Jackson, age 8, and Brandon, age 5. Wow, 5 children. So with that, let's give a warm welcome to RI Director-elect, Drew.
Good evening, and Matt, thank you so much for that introduction. And I gotta say, you're celebrating your I believe it's your 40th wedding anniversary from Mexico, and you're introducing me. So I feel like extremely privileged and honored that you're taking some time to do that.
Thank
So
you.
tonight I would like to be brief in my remarks because I think the key here is Barry and his address. So I don't want to take too much time, but I want to start off really by thanking. We're up to 114 participants. Really thanking you for coming online tonight and being part of this dialogue, being part of the conversation, because I think we could all agree that we want to ensure that this organization is around not only for us, but for our kids and for our grandkids. To me, that's what it's all about, is how do we ensure that all the good work that's been done the past 100 years, we're going to see again in the next 100 years. And over the past, call it year and a half, our organization has shifted considerably. And if you ask most, it wasn't something that was really on the horizon, and no one really could have predicted what was going to happen with the onset of COVID-19. But what it has done is really fast forward our organization by a good decade, from my perspective, in how we manage and we use technology. How we're able to have the meeting we're having tonight almost flawlessly, right? We're all able to jump on an online format, and as we would traditionally meet in, whether it's a hotel ballroom or at a restaurant, we now have this avenue that we didn't have previously, or maybe we had it and just didn't use it. And it's that thought that I think our organization will forever be changed, and it's being changed for the better, that I'd like to think that we're going to have hybrid model going forward for all events, all main events, whether it be a district conference, whether it be a membership, Monday, or pets, or whatever we're going to do, that we're going to now have a platform that whatever we're doing on a main stage, we'd be able to also simulcast or record it thereafter for those who want to be able to experience it online or at a later date. Where past we'd be able to have these great events and they'd kind of only be for those who attended. But now we have the opportunity for everybody. And whether you're here in New York or you're in Australia, as we heard before, that's the amazing piece of technology that we now have. And really, to me, it's the silver lining of the current situation. So years ahead, when we look back, it'll be really this moment in time in which I think we've all pivoted and embraced a totally new medium that we weren't experiencing, or if we were not experiencing it on the level we currently are. The other main thing I think that this has really provided us, and when I say this past 18 months, is the concept of collaboration and doing things on a much larger scale. By bringing many more Rotarians together that ordinarily might not have come together, we now have that opportunity. And where it's an online format, I foresee a future, and whether that's 6 months from now or 6 years from now, that our events just get bigger, right? That we have more opportunity to invite more people, that we're able to mix and mash our geographies, that there's no reason why someone from Albany can't attend an event in Rochester because it's only a couple hours away. And really that's the beauty of it. And if we're able to get 400 or 500 Rotarians in a room, the sky's the limit as to who we could attract, whether it's Rotary senior leaders or those from outside of our organization that can really deliver some powerful messages and provide us content that otherwise we wouldn't maybe be able to get if we had 30 or 40 or 50 people in a room. So again, we talk silver linings, and to me, that's a tremendous silver lining, and really kudos to the entire Empire Network and the 4 districts involved with the Empire region for doing many, many things on top of pets together, which is absolutely tremendous. So I really congratulate the leadership of the 4 districts for all that you've done previously, currently, and what you have planned in the future as it relates to collaboration. And lastly, I really think it's incumbent upon all of us when we talk about growing the organization or the future of the organization to make sure that we're relevant to all demographics, right? I'm a very, very big believer, if you're like-minded, right? If we share the same ideals, we should offer a platform for you, whether that's online, in person, with a meal, without a meal, regardless of how we conduct ourselves, right? If we meet at service projects, whatever it is we're doing, that we provide a Rotary experience and a good Rotary experience for all those that want it, that share the same ideals that we share. And I say that that's really incumbent upon us because we as Rotarians have the ability, have the power. We are the organization of the power of one. or one individual can have an idea, can stand tall and say, this is how I want to do something, or this is why we should do something, that really moves us into the next generation of the organization. And I think it's upon all of us to make sure our clubs represent the communities in which we serve. And that's by asking the question, right? Asking people to become part of us and share the experience and the opportunity. So for me, it's bright skies ahead. I am very bullish on what Rotary can be. I'm extremely bullish on what Rotary is. And I'm proud to be part of this organization. As mentioned before, I've been in Rotary for 20 years. And I stay in Rotary because it's the fellowship and the network that I've built, the family that I've built that has me coming back day after day. And I think it's an absolutely tremendous organization. And I'd like to thank all those that are on, because if you're willing to dedicate the time, even if you're in Mexico celebrating your 40th anniversary, if you're willing to dedicate the time on a Tuesday evening to hear about what's going on in the future, you are those who are going to make sure that there is a future. So I will conclude before I introduce the keynote speaker and say thank you. Thank you for all that you have done, all that you're currently doing, and all that you're going to be doing for this great organization. So without further ado, let me take a moment to introduce Barry Rassin. I think many are aware that Barry was the international president in 2018-2019. His theme was Be the Inspiration. He's a member of the Rotary Club of East Nassau in the Bahamas. And it was there that he coordinated the Rotary disaster relief efforts in Haiti following the 2010 earthquake. Rotary raised $6.5 million and completed 105 projects in Haiti after the earthquake. And while Barry has almost every professional and Rotary accolade I can think of, the key thing that when I hear Barry's name, or I have the fortune of being with Barry or seeing him, is Barry's a visionary. He is a change maker. And it's this organization that needs just that. We need visionaries. We need to be able to have people that see things that don't currently exist to make sure our organization is visioned for a future. Many might remember back when Barry was Rotary president, there was an article in the Rotarian that was done on him, and the picture of him and Esther was with flamingos in front of him. And it was in that picture, there was a flamingo that was facing an opposite direction. And at the time, it wasn't exactly noticed, but it was very shortly thereafter when the picture was reviewed that Barry noticed this, and really that epitomizes what Barry is. And it's being able to see something that others can't see. And from that, Barry created the Flamingo Challenge, whereby he asked everybody to challenge themselves to a change. And we all know change is never easy, but Barry approaches the concept, there's the flamingo. He approaches the concept with an eye towards collaboration. And I think that is the key message. And obviously I don't want to steal any of Barry's thunder, but anytime change is not easy. And we all know that. And it's getting people part of it from the beginning that really makes it that much more manageable. With that, Barry, just like myself, has an extremely supportive partner that enables him to do all that he does. He has a beautiful wife, Esther, that is tremendous. And I hope everyone at some point has the opportunity to meet her, to hear her speak, because she's wonderful and is true champion for the Rotary cause. Barry currently chairs an extremely important, and from my perspective, probably one of the most important Rotary International committees, and that's Shaping Rotary's Future. It is that committee that's reviewing everything that Rotary does on every level to make sure that, again, we are relevant to all demographics and to make sure that we are around for a future. So with that, I will introduce the past Rotary International president, the current chair of Shaping Rotary's Future, Barry Rassin.
Thank you, Director Drew. Very kind introduction. I appreciate that. Good to see you again. And Matt, I got to tell you, being in Mexico on your anniversary and coming to Rotary, but I did do one worse. On our honeymoon, our first day away in Colorado, I went to a Rotary Club to get my makeup. I'm reminded, that's 40 years ago, and I'm still being reminded of that. So just remember, it stays with you forever. But really good to be here with you all. It you know, what's really special is to see all the districts come together and work together. And really that's part of what's right at the heart of what I'm going to talk about tonight, is getting not just one district, but other districts, other Rotarians, other groupings together so we can do more together than we have in the past. So I'm going to go through a model that this committee has been working on for about 2.5 years, put a lot of time, a lot of research, asked a lot of Rotarians and Rotaractors what their thoughts were. And this isn't something that's been approved by the board of directors or the trustees. This is being recommended, and I've had an opportunity to talk to the board probably every 2 months for the last year to bring them up to date on what we're doing and how we're doing it and what we recommend. And we've adjusted over time. But we have to remember that this isn't something that's fixed in concrete. Quite often we know when Rotary tells us, then that's a done deal. This is not a done deal. The idea here is to get input and to try it out in a couple of places around the world and then see how it works, modify it for what doesn't work, make it better before we ever go to the Rotary world. One of the questions you're going to ask, what's the timeline? And I'm going to tell you right up front, long time. Okay, I'm thinking at least 3 councils on legislation. So that's 9 years by itself starting next year. So this is long-term, but we want to do this carefully and gradually because this is major change. You're going to see some things and you're going to ask yourself, especially the district governors in the room, why are we doing this? Because everything works fine today. The reality is it doesn't. And before I get into the model, I'm going to give you some reasons why we need change. So that's where I'm headed, just so you have a little background before I get started. I'm going to share my screen so you can kind of follow me along. So we all know that Rotary has been the premier service organization for more than 100 years. But the only way an organization like ours can continue to be relevant and impactful is by evolving to meet the needs of today's members and future generations of Rotarians and Rotaractors. To safeguard Rotary's future, we must continue to adapt while still providing a robust and fulfilling membership experience. Now, for the last several years, there's been a committee of members dedicated to looking forward and Rotary's future. How can we engage current members while creating a membership experience that creates new voices and attracts new voices? Do our leadership roles provide enough value to our members? The answers to these questions and so many more led to the shaping Rotary's Future Committee to propose a new governance structure. And I might add that they were asked not to look at what we have and try to tweak it and fix it, but to come up with what we would do if we were to start Rotary today, in today's world. So a very different approach to what we do in the past. Now, there's some things we don't want to change. We have to remember that who we are and what we do are really important, and that's what makes us so good. So we don't want to change those things. We know what our core values are. We know how important fellowship is to everything we do. We know that our reputation for integrity is out in the communities. I mean, Bill Gates gave us over $1 billion so far because of the integrity, because he knows when he gives it to us, we're going to spend it right. We're one of the more diverse organizations, and yet we have a long way to go to get where we should be with diversity, equity, and inclusion. And of course, service is what most people know us for. And in the communities, when they see a Rotary pin, they say, yes, we know what Rotary does. We know they bring us hope. And of course, leadership. We're all leaders. And we're leaders in our communities as well as in Rotary, and we make a difference. So we don't want any of this to change. This is who we are, and we need to honor this and embrace our future, but at the same time, respect our past. Now, let's begin by asking, if you were to create Rotary today, how would it be structured? Would you use the same governance model and leadership roles that we currently have, or would you develop something completely new? Chances are you would do things differently. At least that's what our members want us to do. They want to be part of an organization that is innovative and nimble, that offers clear paths to leadership and adapts to the evolving needs of members and the community. So in July 2018, the board of directors tasked the Shaping Rotary's Future Committee with pushing forward by creating an organizational structure that attracts new participants, enhances the current membership experience, creates leadership roles that are doable and appealing, and improves our ability to adapt. The proposed governance structure provides a more inclusive and equitable membership experience. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are important to current Rotarians and Rotaractors, and those we hope will join Rotary in the coming years. So with this in mind, we focused on making sure that the jobs we create in the new structure are meaningful and they're doable based on who our participants are and what our clubs need. We also want to be sure that we're being efficient and effective and we're delivering value to our participants and our clubs. Quite often in the past, we think we've got to be delivering value to our communities. That's true. But we need to look internally and make sure we're delivering value to our members. That's really critical. And when you see some numbers later, you'll see why. We also, of course, need to support Rotary's strategic initiatives and our goals. We need to focus more on our participants. And I'm sorry I keep using the term participants because some of you are wondering why I don't call us members. But in a later slide, you'll see where we're talking about clubs and participants and members. And I'll explain that at that point. So that's why we're focused on participants. We also want to streamline the organization to create effective governance. It's got to be effective. Why have it if it's not going to be effective to every club around the world? We also want to ensure that our structure is flexible and can evolve as participants' needs grow. That flexibility is another key part of what we want to accomplish. Why are we doing things exactly the same in Japan as we do in India, as we do in the USA, where their cultures are so different? We still have to be this who we are. We still have to do what we do, but how we do it could be different. So let me make a case for change. Now, perhaps you're wondering why Rotary needs to change at all. In some parts of the world, membership is up, but member retention is down. And really, none of us like the word retention. It's really about member engagement. Are we really engaging every member? Are we involving them in what we do? The age of our members continues to grow, and we still struggle with this perception that Rotary is for certain people. This is compounded by the fact that we've yet to reach gender parity in membership and leadership. In order to thrive, we must consider the needs of future generations. If we don't change as quickly as the world does, the Rotary we know today won't be around tomorrow. Now take a look at this, which is our current governance model. All kind of lines, all kind of boxes going all kind of directions. And as you can see, it's hampered by layers of hierarchy and doesn't provide a clear path to leadership. That hinders decision-making and limits good communication. And that's where I think about, does a Rotary club, all 37,000 of them, know what the Rotary International Board of Directors is doing and is in tune to that to such a degree that they're on the same path? And I'm sure we'd all agree that that's not the case. What you don't see is that at the district level, there are 29 mandated positions, plus an additional 13 recommended roles. And at the regional level, there are 200 regional leadership roles with an additional 547 assistant leader positions. That's a whole lot of people in the hierarchy. Now, many of these positions are filled by appointment, meaning that some skilled, capable, and knowledgeable Rotarians don't have visibility or access to any of these leadership opportunities. And finally, Rotaract isn't even included in this model. They operate separately, even though we're all one organization. That's a missed opportunity that we've been working hard since the last Council of Legislation to change and make that much different. So let's look at a few other challenges that we have. Well, we know that we've been saying 1.2 million members in Rotary clubs for the last 20 years. And we're actually at 1,174,000. We're not even 1.2. And next year we're budgeting for 1.145, another drop. And yeah, we could say that's COVID-19 and we'll get through this and we'll come back. But the reality is, when you look at our graph, our trend is down and not up. And that's a challenge for any organization. Now, I have to say, we're doing much better than those who compare themselves to us. They have gone down dramatically, most of them, I think all of them. Whereas we've just kind of stabilized, if you will, and dropped slightly. But the next number is the scary number. We have lost 1,385,187 members over the last 10 years. We've lost more people in our organization in 10 years than we have in it today. I mean, it boggles my mind. I think if we only had half of them today, how much stronger we'd be, how much more work we could do in our world to make our world a better place. This is the crux of our challenge. And this is part of what we want to address with the new role. So, okay. Have a little background noise here.
Somebody needs to mute.
Somebody needs to mute themselves or getting background noise.
So when you look at our diversity, and the first diversity we looked at was gender diversity. And we've only been bringing women into the clubs for about 30 years. You'd think we'd do much better. But today we only make up about 24% of our global membership with females. Now, in some parts of the world, that percentage is higher, right up to 50%. But some countries are well below that average. We're seeing tremendous growth from 10 years ago, as you can see in the chart. But if this trend continues only, then Rotary won't achieve gender parity until 2050. In this day and age, that's just not good enough. Rotaract, on the other hand, has already achieved gender parity with 51% of its global membership being women. They're way ahead of us, folks. And that's why we need to start listening to our Rotaractors. And that's a whole nother presentation I could make sometime. But Rotaractors know a lot of the answers that we need to hear and listen to very carefully. And at the district level, many parts of the Rotary world continue to have leadership positions dominated by so-called more experienced males. And you know that less than 6% of district governors are younger than 60 years old. 6%. Like our global membership, less than 25% of women serve in regional or district leadership roles. When we look at regional leadership specifically, 33% of our picks are women. But until last Rotary year, our pick was the only regional leader position that didn't require members to be a past district governor. Our picks are generally comprised of more women than other positions. Ask yourself, is being a requirement to be a past district governor limiting our ability to get good diversity in our leadership roles? Something for us to think about. But this is an example of a barrier to leadership. Requiring a member to serve as a PDG before they can be a regional leader may limit their growth opportunities. When we prioritize the Rotary resume over professional experience and personal goals, it rewards those who have been members longer. without considering their knowledge or their ability. So let's take a look at what we propose. Now remember, you remember the current governance model I showed you with all the lines. So keep that in mind as we go through this. Because instead of that, we are proposing something new. Members will continue to belong to a Rotary or Rotaract club. Clubs will remain unchanged, though they will be grouped into sections. Each section will have 10 to 30 Rotary and Rotaract clubs. We mix them up with a section leader providing guidance and motivation. That's an important factor. Districts then will be restructured into regions that are governed locally by a regional council. And finally, there's the board of directors and trustees, along with a newly created global cadre of experts to help members, clubs, and regional councils. Each member, Rotarians and Rotaractors, within a region can apply to and elect their regional council representatives and their section leaders. So you can hear from that there's more input from the clubs, from members, as to who our leaders are. Let's look at the global level. Well, at the global level, the RI board and the trustees do not change. We haven't touched those. You'll hear about why their role will change a little, but that's just as a result of everything else. In addition, there will be a global cadre. Now, we know of the cadre that serves stewardship for the Rotary Foundation. This is very different from that because this has experts in every area of Rotary. These leaders will provide an expertise on specific topics that represent core functions of a club. Their expertise may originate from their Rotary experience or their professional lives, both of which will be actively solicited and valued. These experts are resources who can help clubs achieve their goals. Unlike current regional leaders, the cadre is not expected to communicate with districts or clubs. They are trained, they are certified as experts, they're internationally based, so they're closer to all the clubs they serve, and they're available to every club and regional council. Now, at the regional level, we know what works in one part of the world doesn't necessarily work in another part of the world. Those clubs who share similar culture, language, and geography will be grouped into a region and governed by a regional council that will make decisions about club, member, and community needs in a more localized way. The regional council manages the day-to-day activities like assessing regional dues and creating committees and supports section leaders. And there'll be probably 40 to 45 regions around the world. We've made a first run at defining what these regions are, but we now need to take that to the directors and then to the regions and get their input to make sure we're not making any mistakes. Right now, we have zones, and the zones are defined only by how many members are in the zone. So we have in countries around the world that are in conflict with each other in the same zone. Some would say, well, that'll help bring peace. Well, so far it hasn't. And so far it's been a challenge. Let's do it a little differently that makes sense for the Rotarians and the Rotaractors in the regions around the world. Each regional council will have 12 elected positions who will be chosen by the Rotarians and Rotaractors within the region to serve a 3-year term. The regional council reports to the board of directors as a whole, not to an individual director, as we see with our current structure. This should free up the board to be more strategic with its thinking and with its time, and focus its duties as international directors, not as regional leaders. Now, rather than districts, Rotary and Rotaract clubs will be organized into sections and supported, not governed, by a section leader. Now, based on the current amount of clubs in the world, We estimate there will be some 1,800 sections with 10 to 30 Rotary and Rotaract clubs per section. The number of sections per region will vary depending on volunteer population, language, and culture. Now, section leaders will lead, they'll motivate, and they'll inspire a small set of clubs within a geographic area. With fewer clubs to support, section leaders can concentrate their efforts on helping clubs to reach their goals. They will serve for 4 years, 2 years as an elect and 2 years as the section leader. So we're talking about longer term continuity to get things done. Expanding leadership terms provides more consistent support and continuity for the clubs. And like the regional council, Rotarians and Rotaractors can apply to and elect their section leader. The section leader position is not replacing the district governor. Instead, we're taking the best parts of the district governor position and dividing it so the administrative responsibilities transition to the regional council, while section leaders will take on the role of motivating and guiding the clubs. So the section leader has no administrative responsibility. They're there to find each club, what do they need? How do we help them to become strong? So this division of responsibilities allows our members to choose a leadership role that better aligns with their professional goals and their interests. Well, that's about it. By introducing a more streamlined governance structure, we can remove some layers of hierarchy, increase efficiency, and attract new voices into Rotary leadership. This change will benefit our organization, we believe, and our members today, while also laying the foundation for a stronger future. As people of action, all of us believe in Rotary's future, but we also know that there's a big gap between who we are as an organization today and who we need or want to be. So that gives you a feel, and you need to keep in mind that this is a package, if you will. Each part of the model works with each other part of the model. So we've had some districts say, oh, we're going to come and do this piece of it. It doesn't work that way because then you don't have support to make it work. So it's the model that we want to pilot in a few parts of the world. Australia, New Zealand, the Pacific Islands are very keen to be the first pilot that we do. And they've been working for about 2 years putting their plans together and matching up with what we're doing. So we're all talking the same. And to get them in the next position, we are going to start meeting with all of their stakeholders. So the plan is, and I haven't figured out in my mind how I do this yet, but I want to meet with all the district governors. Then I want to meet with all the governor-elects and nominees. Then I want to meet with all the PDGs in every one of their districts. There's 14 of them. Then we want to start meeting with individuals, and we want them to understand what this is all about and how it works, and say, yes, we want to try it. That's partly why it's going to take some time, but I'd rather do this right and make sure we have understanding and buy-in from the people who are going to live with it than from just us as a small community. So we have a lot to do to get this to where it needs to be. We're talking about it in many parts of the world. I was in Africa yesterday talking about it. They're very anxious to become a pilot for part of Africa. I was talking to Europe. They want to be a pilot. I was talking to Great Britain and Ireland. They already have a little different structure. So I'm meeting with them on Friday to go through this, but also they want to do some things totally different. And so we don't want a model that challenges our model. And then we have to be watching, measuring outcomes in all kinds of different places. That would be just too much of a challenge. So we want to try this in different parts of the world. Your 2 zones have expressed interest to be a pilot. And
Rocco, could you please mute yourself? Rocco?
so we want to start developing that. I've already met with Drew and Valerie, and they want to put together a committee to start talking about how we can do this with your group. And I know there's a whole lot of questions as to how this is going to work. It's major change. This isn't just a little tweaking. So there's got to be a lot of discussion, a lot of questions, a lot of answers, and some questions I don't have answers for yet. But I think that's okay, because the more questions we get, the more we develop the best way to go forward. So with that, I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you have.
Barry, on behalf of everybody, thank you so much for walking us through that. It is an extremely impressive feat of work that you and the committee have accomplished thus far. And I think I speak for most, hopefully, if not everybody, that we're all excited for all that's to come in the years ahead of us. So with that, as Barry mentioned, we'd like to have a question and answer period. If there are any questions anybody has, feel free to drop them in the chat box, and Barry and I can discuss them, and I can bring them forward. There was actually a question that was brought forward prior to this meeting, and that was, it came from a leader of a small rural club. And Barry, if you could share with the group maybe some of your thoughts as to how a club that is traditional and has done things kind of a certain way for many, many years can take baby steps on trying to change the culture and adapt and allow new things to come in. Many can be unfortunately told no, or that's not how we do things. But in your experience, in your opinion, this person would like to know, maybe a couple little things that can be done to enable change like this.
Yeah, and it's a good question, because the reality is we have many clubs around the world that they're a Rotary club, they're doing work in their community, but they're not adjusting with the times. They're not current, they're not relevant to young professionals. And I'll talk a little about that, about Rotaract in a moment. But what we have to do is by having this section leader that we talked about, we would then have an individual who could spend more time with each club, talking to the club. Because right now we'll have clubs say, well, there's nothing wrong with us, we're fine. We do service in our community. And they don't recognize that they have a problem as a Rotary club. They're doing work, okay. But they're not doing it following the strategic plan, if you will, of Rotary International. So to do that, you have to go into the club, talk to the club, and help them to understand what they should be doing as a Rotary club. And I appreciate that when we have a club, the average age is in their 70s. Now, guys, I'm in my 70s, okay? So I'm not insulting anybody except myself. But the reality is, if we have everybody in their 70s in the club, we don't have diversity of age or gender, then who wants to join that club? And that's a reality we have. And what I recommend to Rotaractors and Rotarians is you need to get together and talk to each other. We can share our experience over all the years. We have a wealth of experience when we get old. I could tell you every mistake I've ever made, and I could help you learn from them. But guess what? I could also learn from those young professionals if I just stop and listen to them. And what we need to do is get our traditional members to just stop and listen to other ideas. And yeah, we're not going to change all their minds. They are who they are. They're doing what they're doing. If they're doing good in the community, it's hard to argue. And my comment to Rotaract is, if you see a club like that and you realize there's no way they're going to change, then go start your own Rotary club right next door. If we have to start fresh, then let's start fresh. Let's not throw them out with the bathwater, though, because they're still doing good in the community. Let's respect what they are doing, but let's start another club that has all those core values that we talk about. But it's all about conversation. It's about relationships, about spending time talking to them, making sure they really understand that if they did this kind of project and people in the community saw it, they'd want to join them because they want to be part of an organization that makes their community better. So to me, it's a lot about conversation and talking. We can't be telling clubs what to do. We have to be talking to them and helping them understand what they should be doing and comparing them to other clubs and showing what another club has done to change. Quick example. I know I'm answering too long on one question, but a quick example. My club, it was 2002, and we still didn't have women in my club. 150 member, all men's club. Drove me crazy for years. And what they did is they would take a vote and they would vote no. So I changed it up. Instead of asking for another vote, I proposed my daughter and my niece. And a friend of mine proposed a daughter of his. And we were summoned to a meeting of a few of the traditionalists and asked to stop. And we said, no, the board needs to make a decision about these individuals. And by the way, you need a good reason not to allow them in the club. Well, I couldn't bring in a good reason. And so they were admitted to the club. And yeah, they took some flack that first year. But you know, the part that I'm getting to is a year later, when the oldest member of the club, and by the way, 5 members resigned, but that was okay. Friends of mine, and they're still friends today. But we're a bigger club today than we were then. But a year afterwards, the oldest member of the club, I think he was 85 at the time, he stood up at the microphone and he said, I apologize. I was wrong. I was against women in the club, and now I see that it's made our club so much better. He had to feel it. He had to understand it. He had to see it before he would really believe it. So we have to go through that sometimes to help people understand what we need to do differently. Change is hard. And I know at my age, change is still hard, but I know it's necessary because today's world is changing rapidly and we need to try to keep pace. So long answer to your question.
That's okay. So I
Sure.
kind of checking the chat room. There is a question there. Is this structure currently in use in the quote wild unquote either another volunteer organization or large business?
Not to our knowledge, that we're not aware of any organization that uses this structure.
Okay. Somebody asked if we could get the model. It'll be included in the recorded meeting. Have we considered how to lower the cost threshold for membership?
Of course, that's a whole lot different question than the model, but I'll answer it anyway. What the Rotary National Board is doing right now is saying, wow, look at what we saved by not traveling for the last year. And how much of that can we continue to do so that we can continue to save dollars and therefore not go to the council for once and ask for a dues increase. So they're looking very carefully. I'm not on the board, so I can't answer how that will end up, but they're looking very carefully, as are the trustees, at let's make sure we're learning from what's happened over the last year. And I know the trustees, I'm on the trustees, they're not going to meet in person as much as they used to. That saves us money. We're not going to bring the spouses to every meeting. That will save us money. So we are looking at everywhere we can to save dollars. We've actually challenged the organization to reduce our travel budget by 25% overall for the long term. And they're trying to figure out how to do that now. So there's a lot of things that are being done right now to reduce the cost of operations. We believe in the long run, using this model puts less burden on Rotary International to provide support, therefore would end up at a reduced cost. But I can't prove that until we get into pilots.
There was a question about pets. Might our pets as they stand today have a different format that starts incorporating these ideas?
Yeah, that's a good question. We can't incorporate these ideas till we prove that these ideas work, although we do plan to try to meet with as many institutes as we can. And I have met with 2 or 3 pets as well to help them understand that this is the thinking today. But keep in mind, how will we do training for district governors in the future? Will there be an assembly? How will we do pets? Will it just be the one district doing their presidents? Or like some parts of the world, we do multi-district pets. I know Florida brings 7 districts together and trains all the presidents one time. And that's kind of the idea. When you do that, you're able to get better speakers usually, and be able to really bring a greater impact to the president by doing things in a bigger way than we have in the past. Our district conferences, many parts of the world, you get 100 people to come in a district that has over 2,000 people. Is that really something that makes sense? Why don't we come together and have 10 districts do their conferences together? Much more impactful and probably a lot more fun. And by the way, involve Rotaractors in the training and in the planning. The best half-day institute I went to when I was president was in Mexico, where they gave the Rotaractors a half a day. They said, do whatever you think is right. We'll give you a Rotarian to help if you have questions, but do it. It was the best half day I went to. So we've got to be thinking different about what we do today. Everything will eventually adjust based on the size of our regions.
There's a lot of questions popping up. So I see a change of structure in the upper level of Rotary. What structural change would clubs have to undergo to be in line with this change?
All they have to do is listen to the section leaders and understand what they need to do better. A lot of clubs say there's nothing wrong with us. I bet you somebody could come in and say, well, you haven't grown your membership in 10 years. You haven't donated to the Rotary Foundation. Only 23% of our clubs donate to the Rotary Foundation. There's a lot of clubs out there who need some guidance. And I think having smaller groupings, sections, that we can bring more guidance to the clubs. So that's the idea of what we're doing.
Okay. Let's see. In the beginning, you highlighted the use of the word participants rather than members. Are considering a model of members, friends, or associate members, or something like that?
The reason I use that term is you might have noticed on the chart, when you get the recording, you can look at this. There's actually 3 boxes on the bottom of the chart: Rotaract clubs, Rotary clubs, and non-club participants. The idea is that Rotary is going to do a pilot this year. They were supposed to do it last year, but COVID stopped it. We're going to do a pilot in Houston and I think somewhere else in the world to test out where people can join Rotary online. Don't need to be a member of a club. They just join online. They do service, and they have to tell us what service they did. They pay dues, and they're in Rotary, but they're not in a club. So that's why we want to start talking about participants as well as members. For me, my heart says we'll always be members, but in this day's terminology, participants apparently is better.
Okay. I think I've gone. There's a lot of comments, but I don't see any more direct questions at this time. Let me see. Oh, somebody just posted down to the bottom. We need advice how to attract membership and encourage retention. What are the practical club level changes that are being tried with these objectives?
Yeah, what clubs are trying is different around the world. One thing Rotary is trying to do is not tell the club what to do. They've given all the guidance, advice. There's a learning resource center. There's a wealth of information for clubs to use to get strong. What we're not doing in clubs is involving every member of the club. There was a graph that we no longer have in the slides I showed that show when people leave Rotary. You saw the 1.3 million people who've left in 10 years. It's because we're not involving them in what we do in the club. A lot of clubs today, they bring in a member because they're told that's what they should do, and nobody talks to them. Nobody lets them sit at this table. After a while they say, well, why am I here? This isn't the Rotary that I thought existed, and therefore they leave. In the first 2-3 years, that's when most of those people leave. We just haven't met their expectations. And that is the key. That's why when I talk to presidents-elect, I tell them what you've got to do is look every one of your members in the eye and ask them, what do they want to get from Rotary? What do they want to do? Which committee do they want to be on? Which service project do they want to head up? get them involved on a personal level as a Rotary club. If you do that, they feel involved. They feel involved, they're going to want to stay. Keep doing that for 3 or 4 years, and then it's family, and then they're home. And that's what we have to do. We're not doing that in too many clubs around the world, unfortunately. That's why we lost 1.4 million Rotarians in 10 years. It's just scary numbers.
We have a multi-districts were mentioned. With this new structure, what size or area would that translate to?
Yeah, and that's what another thing we want to do differently. Right now, zones are defined by the number of members. So every 2 zones, I think, has 35,000 members. And that's for good reason, but that's the only definition of a zone. So what we want to do is define a region based on culture, primarily, but also geography and language. You can't be exact because parts of the world they stand alone, basically. But you want to be much more careful how we lump countries into regions. So as an example, one region could be the 4 districts in the Caribbean, along with Florida and Georgia. Okay, they're different cultures, but there's a lot of similarity there. You know, all of us in the Caribbean shop in Florida, so we know Florida. So there's a lot of similarities there. Australia, New Zealand, and the Pacific Islands, they feel that's a perfect combination for culture. In the US, I think we could divide the US into 3, maybe 4 regions, so that you've got similarity in the cultures of the regions. We've already done, as I say, a first go, and we got about 35 regions. But in talking to individuals like yourselves and saying, what does this look like to you if you were in, if we divided it this way and you're in this region? And they would point out, well, yeah, but that country, they don't think like we do. How about putting them in that one over there? We have to have those kind of discussions. So, but when you take 530 or 40 districts and divide it into only 40 or 50 regions, then clearly you're going to put a lot of districts together. Maybe 14 to 20 districts come together as districts. And we don't have to keep the district as it is. We can separate clubs into different regions.
We have a question. What do you think about the idea of a formal regional position devoted to social media presence? Some clubs and districts are very good, others not so. There is so much potential here.
Totally agree. Every club should do better at social media. Every district should do better. And in our model, we would have one of those 12 members of the board of directors of the regional council who understands social media and how to do it. Absolutely. In fact, going into a little more detail on the regional board, those 12 positions should be unique. Each one should have a different skill set. We don't want to vote for 12 people we like, excuse the expression. We want to vote for somebody in finance, somebody who's good at membership, somebody who's good in marketing, et cetera, so that you end up with a board for the region of individuals who have specific skills that can bring those skills to help the region develop. And eventually I'd like that to happen on the board of directors as well, but we weren't tasked with it. But you are right. Social media is a great opportunity that we've missed out on.
Okay. There's a lot of comments in the chat, so but there's no new questions right now. Anybody else have a question for Barry or for Drew? Or for any of us, for that matter?
There's one let me throw out that you didn't ask, which is usually asked.
Okay.
That's what happens to Rotary Foundation donations. You make donations, there's a share program, you get back to the district. We want to make sure that whatever is in the district, whenever a transition occurs, and that could be years, that would be years from now, because you've had elections, you've got district governor elect, district governor nominee, possibly even a nominee designate. We're not going to stop that. So we wouldn't start anywhere until after all that. But with the district designated funds, we want to make sure that that's property of the clubs in that district. So we don't want to disturb that. Eventually, we will transition with new monies into a regional board so that there would be regional funds as opposed to district funds. And then the regional board would determine how to do grants for the sections or for clubs. Or guess what? We could do much more transformative projects because the regional board would get much more dollars back and could do much more for the region than each district by themselves doing. And so that's part of the thinking, but again, we have to develop the details of how that would work. We also believe that by having these regions, if you have a region as an example, by using New Zealand, Australia, and the Pacific Islands, they'll have one chairman of the board for that region. When that individual goes to the head of the government, to the prime minister, and says, I represent Rotary in the country of Australia, the power they have to convince the government to help is much greater than any one district doing that same thing. So there's much more opportunity for us to leverage our reputation and our dollars to accomplish much more impact in the way of helping communities. So.
There was a question, what about youth program?
Well, you know, I always talk about our youth as a journey. You join Interact, that's the beginning of your journey that is the rest of your life. And we need to give that message to Interact clubs so that when you finish Interact, you go to a Rotaract club in a university or a community-based and you continue your community service. And from university, community-based, then you join a Rotary club when you're ready. So it's really important. I mean, I think of it, there's 250,000 Rotaractors. Less than 4% of them were joining Rotary clubs. Now we've started to change over the last 2 years and get them feeling much better about how we think about them. They feel more respected. To such a degree, they've grown Rotaract clubs in 2 years by 50%. I haven't seen Rotary clubs do that, even though we grow Rotary clubs every year. But they have grown in 2 years from 7,400 clubs to 11,500 clubs. That's an incredible growth. And so they're ready. Now we have to change our club cultures to welcome them into our clubs. That's the hard part. But our youth, if we get this right and we adjust our culture and be more welcoming to our young professionals, then our average age starts to come down, our diversity improves. And guess what? Our decision-making improves because it's proven that the more diversity you have in a decision, the better the decision is going to end up being. So a lot of opportunity with our youth that we haven't done well with, I don't believe, in the past. And now we're trying to correct for that and making good progress.
And we have a comment presentation, which I think everyone would agree with.
I have a question for Barry, if I could. This is Larry from District 7120.
Sure.
What about our youth exchange program? Where is that going to fit in the future?
Well, we haven't exactly talked specifics about the youth program, but it's a very popular program in Rotary and it does amazing things for our youth who join Youth Exchange. So that needs to be there and we need to determine how that's going to work. Would the regional boards be the ones who make the decisions on youth? And when they're in an exchange, do they now have a bigger region that they can visit than they did before? So I think there's more opportunities, not less, but certainly it's a very important aspect of Rotary that we must continue.
And there's someone asking a question. Is there anything that we should be exploring in regards to these innovative and exciting changes?
What I would suggest is you do more as districts together. Get together. I mean, you've already got 4 districts right here, and that's fantastic. That's a start. Bring some other governors in and say, hey, how about if we all get together on a periodic basis and talk about what things we can do together? Instead of 4 district conferences, have 1 district conference. And I you know, where we're doing that, we're getting more people involved, we're having better programs, and we're getting the president to come because he can speak to so many more people than he could otherwise. We get to the point where a district conference only has 100 people. The president's not even going to send the president's rep. That's not going to happen anymore. But I think it's important to get the perspective of the board to those Rotarians and Rotaractors on the ground. So do more together. I think that's the big lesson. That's what Australia has been doing in their process. They have a committee that's involved in 7 different districts, but all the district governors in the area know what they're doing and are giving input into it. So I think the more we work together and realize the impact we can have when we do more together, that makes a big difference.
Barry, we were thinking the same thing about the clubs. Perhaps they should also get together and do things jointly within the district.
I totally agree. If I was a section leader, the first thing I would do is to get all the clubs together and talk about what we can do together as a section. I think we all know that 1 + 1 is 2, but when you put a club with another club, a district with another club, you do 4 or 5. You do so much more. And the thinking is different. You're more creative, more innovative. Yes, in all levels of the organization, we should do more together. And why not reach out to, I recommend this to Rotaract districts, and a lot of districts around, a lot of areas around the world have enough Rotaractors to have their own district. And I've urged them, meet with another district around the world. And you guys you're so good at online activities, do some stuff together and get to know each other, share your culture. That's the internationality that we finally learned in Rotary, that it works. It's not perfect. In person, I still want to go back and see my friends in my Rotary Club, but we can get the job done by Zoom. And at some point we'll get back to in person as well. So let's do more together and let's use this technology that we've learned for the benefit of what we do.
Wonder if I can ask a question. I can't quite seem to get into the chat very well, but listening to all of this sounds very exciting. But I'm wondering, Barry, what do you feel is the fundamental driving force that will allow these sections and regions to accomplish what districts and zones could not?
Part of the idea is that we bring in some new thinking, some individuals who, I've been in Rotary 41 years. Can I really bring much new to the table? I want some people who've been in long enough to understand Rotary, but short enough that they have ideas that they want to try. So I think by changing the requirements of who is the leaders in regions of the world, we're able to bring more individuals who are more creative and have the time. These positions are designed so that an individual who's very busy can still do it. I mean, my district has 184 clubs between Rotaract and Rotary, and we're on 16 islands in 10 countries. One district governor can't even visit them all. I mean, he's done it on Zoom, but are you really motivating them to do better? Are you really finding out what their issues are? Don't think so. So we need to change the job so that somebody who's already busy, because they're good and people ask them to do things, can also do this. So I think by creating jobs that are more available for people who right now simply can't do it because they're younger, they're busy, they just can't afford the time. With this, hopefully they could do it, and therefore we get a different level of ability. And I'm not taking away from all those who've gone before us and done such a good job. We have done a great job, but we're at a transition point, at a turning point in the organization, and we need to find a way to bring in new thinking. And I think this structure allows that.
Okay. Any other questions? Well, if, let's see. I was a DJ, putting on clothes just too much. Yep. Well, I guess if there are no more questions, I don't know if Matt or Cheryl or Linda want to say anything, but I'd like to thank you, Barry and Drew, for taking the time to present to us tonight. We've been doing quite a bit joint with these 4 districts together. So, we kind of understand the importance of how this is going to move forward. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Matt, anything? Okay. Well, we get it.
Thanks, Drew and Barry again.
Yeah.
No, we're all very thrilled you are here tonight. It's something that we've been very interested in about what the future of Rotary holds. We know there's so many changes. So thank you both for being here tonight. It means a lot to us as we go forward in all our multi-district events we've been promoting this past year in particular.
It's nice to get this out to the club members too, so they could listen in and hear it firsthand.
Yes. This recording will be made available to everyone.
Mhm.
Just so that you know, we'll get this out, which will include the presentation that Barry had. So everything will be there. You'll have a good opportunity to look at it.
Yep.
And this whole structure is designed to help Rotary clubs to be better and to give them the support and the resources they need, because they're the ones who do the work of Rotary.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks, Barry.
I guess if we have no more questions, wow, we ended a little early, which is fine, right? Matt, go enjoy that beach. Happy anniversary, Matt.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks,
Have a
everyone.
good night. Thank you.
Have a great